What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OG GM, the West Coast Grognard, the scrubbiest of scrub DMs. I've got a PhD in being an idiot. That's me. It's Friday. It's time to take a look at what's going on in tabletop role-playing game news that we might have missed. Is there anything going on that doesn't involve Wizards of the Coast? Probably not. God damn you, Wizards of the Coast. You make my job so easy. All right, D&D Beyond news. We know D&D Beyond has managed to creep its way into the latest round of controversy, no fault of its own. I could go on and on and on about D&D Beyond. I think I just made a rhyme there, didn't I? On and on and on about D&D Beyond. All right, so Ravenloft spooky D&D Beyond news before we move on to other D&D Beyond nonsense. Taliesin Jaffe has a Domain of Dread up a D&D Beyond just in time for spooky October. Spooky. It is called the Realm of Vandermeer. It is a free new realm up on D&D Beyond. It was actually originally put up in 2021, but it's getting some play again because it's Halloween. It's a basically it seems to be a demi-plane in Ravenloft called Vandermeer, and it's all built around libraries and secrets and stuff like that. Whispering hallways, catacombs, wild animated libraries, attacking people. So it's a D&D Beyond exclusive Domain of Dread created by Taliesin Jaffe. It was originally created last year, but D&D Beyond is reposting it right now because Halloween. So if you are interested in taking a look at some of Jaffe's work in the world of Ravenloft, check the link down below. What else is going on? D&D Beyond, as you know, as I said at the beginning of this, it's slowly dipping its fingers into the controversy pool, and the controversy seems to be basically focused on claims that the geniuses over at Wizards of the Coast has made about how the D&D Beyond / proposed D&D 1, D&D 6th edition virtual tabletop is going to work as they continue to move away from physical representation of Dungeons & Dragons product to virtual. So now they're talking about, as it's going to be VTT, as it's going to be D&D Beyond, as the D&D Beyond, it will supposedly talk to the inevitable Wizards of the Coast run virtual tabletop program. They're basically talking about loot crates and DLCs or something. What is it? DLCs, DCLs, whatever they're called, and pay-to-play services added to D&D Beyond and the virtual tabletop, which is upsetting a lot of people. No fault of D&D Beyond's, other than the fact that it's just an awful thing. But I mean, D&D Beyond works. It does its job. It's always been pay-per-use. You only get the starter stuff for free. Anything else, if you want books or anything else or new content, you got to pay for it. But now they're talking about basically doing the same thing, pay to play video games like Diablo Online or Warcraft or Path of Exile does, where if you want specific cosmetics or specific special effects or specific looks to your characters or a familiar, or if you want to basically individualize your character, they're going to have boxes and packs that you can purchase to download and add to your character. If you've never played Path of Exile, same thing. Path or Diablo Immortal or any of these other box games. You there's a shop. You pay real life money to buy digital currency, and then you use that digital currency to buy things in the shop. And these can be hats, these can be cloaks, these can be whole suits of armors, these can be pets or toys or things like that. There might also be an auction house type thing where people can trade in-game product for, imaginary money. Like, I have 2 copies of this really obscure, rare cloak and glowing head thing, and I only want 1. So if you give me 20 D&D Beyond tokens, I will trade you this cloak, and 20 D&D Beyond tokens is equal $50. So you buy $50 worth of tokens, you then trade that person the tokens for the cloak, and then he takes the tokens to the shop and buys something he wants, or auctions off something else or whatever. That's usually how it works. I doubt it'll be items, but it's probably going to be a lot of, just cosmetics. So if, like, my ranger has a pet wolf, I've made my ranger in the D&D virtual tabletop D&D Beyond, but there's no wolf, and my ranger doesn't look like my ranger looks in my head. So I'm going to pay a lot of money to buy these digital tokens, and then use these digital tokens to buy more things for my character. So now my character in the virtual tabletop will have that wolf that my character in the real game has. Hopefully I explained it. Now, this is the first time we've ever seen this in D&D, but it's not the first time we've seen it in video games. Another thing that's going on is there's now a program in place, supposedly, or just getting its first starts, where Wizards of the Coast is encouraging game stores to help new players set up digital accounts with D&D Beyond. So that, instead of dealing with a third-party store, the merchants will eventually have to the customers will eventually just have to deal directly with Wizards of the Coast, because we know physical stores aren't going to get copies, or very few copies, of the new product, but Wizards of the Coast store is going to have the new product. So you go into, I don't know, Dreamworld Collectibles here in Ventura, California, and say, I want to buy the new 1 D&D Player's Handbook. And then the lovely young ladies at Dreamworld Collectibles here in Ventura, California goes, hey, I will help you set up a D&D Beyond account, and then you can get the digital stuff as well as this physical product that I may or may not have. This is not unusual. Retail has done this forever. People buy something, and then the clerk has to help you set up the digital aspect on your, phone companies do it. Video game companies do it. Lots of things do it. Why would they do it? Because it's more cost effective for you to buy the books directly from Wizards of the Coast than Wizards of the Coast work through a third product. It's going to screw over third-party retail like Dreamworld Collectibles here in Ventura, California, because, now they're basically only incentive for working with Wizards of the Coast is to direct potential customers to Wizards of the Coast and hope that while the customer is in the store, they buy some other product where the real money is. So that's what's going on in D&D Beyond. Now, personal side note, I still think D&D Beyond sucks. If you're at home in front of a computer with a dedicated line, it works great. If you're campaign designing and stuff like that. But once you leave home and you have D&D Beyond on this, how good D&D Beyond is only going to be related to how good your digital device is and how good the service is wherever you are. So, you're using this to talk to some random internet server over the Ethernet and hoping that your speed and that speed is good enough so that when you look stuff up on D&D Beyond, you find it. Now, from my personal experience, also being as a player and as a DM, it looks like D&D Beyond is counterintuitive. It takes a lot longer for people to find whatever they're looking for. And then, as opposed to just looking at it for a piece of paper. Now, my personal experience is it takes me a lot less time to just pull out my character record sheet and go, I'm +7 to my Constitution save, than it has for the person who's using D&D Beyond to go, oh, wait, what's my Constitution? Oh, yeah. Now, I could go on, if you haven't heard my story about the +2d6, I'm playing in a 5e game, as you know, And last week, one of the players picked up a sword, a short sword that does 1d6 plus 2d6 psychic damage. Now, for anybody else, that would be just, 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Short sword. 1d6 plus 2d6 psychic damage. Write it down. But this guy was on D&D Beyond. So the great game came to a sudden halt right in the middle of, action, because it took this poor guy 5, 10, 20 minutes to figure out how to put a plus 2d6 short sword into D&D Beyond, because he couldn't, D&D Beyond counterintuitiveness wouldn't let him do that. Meanwhile, everybody at the table is just slowly yelling at the kid, and the frustration's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because the kid is either incapable of writing short sword 1d6 plus 2d6 on a piece of paper, or doesn't want to, or literally doesn't know how to. That's just so used to using D&D Beyond that they're completely incapable of using a normal piece of paper. Now, there could be a lot of other reasons why the kid couldn't be bothered to write down 1d6 plus 2d6 short sword, but there's absolutely no reason it should have taken 20 minutes of game time to finally get somebody else to just so frustrated that another player just grabbed the piece of paper, wrote down short sword 1d6 plus 2d6 psychic, and handed it to the character. Now, also the DM's kind of at fault, because after like 3 minutes he should have just said dude and wrote it down for him, but he just sat there and let the kid waste 20 minutes of game time. Now, that's on the DM, that's on the kid, but that's also on D&D Beyond. It's counterintuitive. So all this stuff about Taliesin Jaffe having a new Domain of Dread, and all this stuff about DLC for D&D Beyond, and how game stores are being supposedly coerced into trying to get people to use D&D Beyond instead of buying the physical product. Well, that's all well and good, but D&D Beyond sucks. And the more you try to make it digital friendly, the more it's gonna suck, because that's just more information that's going to be filling up memory, more time to find what you're looking for, and you're going to have more and more repeat experiences of people sitting at a table going, what is my... how do I... While the people who have, a general level of intellect are just going to go, plus 2d6. There, I'm done. Can we go? Yeah, so in my personal opinion, I don't see D&D Beyond ever supplementing just paper. Just having a, having a DM who's just capable to write down on a 3x5 index card, short sword, 1d6 plus 2d6, bam, here you go, we move on, is a lot more intuitive than D&D Beyond, where it took 20 minutes of game time for a kid to figure out how to get D&D Beyond to do 1d6 plus 2d6. And even after 20 minutes, he still couldn't do it. And eventually we were just like, dude, write it down. So there is some D&D Beyond news. If you're a fan of D&D Beyond, here's a link to Taliesin Jaffe's Domain of Dread. So even though it's a year old, it's some good Halloween-themed merch. And speaking of merch, don't forget that I have a whole bunch of merch. I've got the exclusive West Coast Grognard fashion line over at atT-Spring. Link down below. Look for some more West Coast Grognard fashion line stuff coming in hopefully December, if I can get my artist, the amazing Andrew M., on tap. And I now have two OSR products exclusively at Big Geek Emporium. September and October issues of my OSR Monster Bash. So check it out at Big Geek Emporium and support the OGGM. It only costs you $1. Till next time, I am your West Coast Grognard, the king of the scrub DMs, a professor in idiocy. I am the OGGM. Support me and have a happy holidays.